July 1st, 2010. 5 a.m. Huntsville, Texas. Michael James Perry opened his eyes inside a narrow concrete cell, fully aware the sunrise would be his last. People believe the execution is the punishment, but the truth is far darker. The real suffering lives inside the final 24 hours. Imagine counting down the exact moment your life will end, listening to the seconds bleed away, speaking to your mother through thick glass, knowing her voice is the last comfort you'll ever feel, choosing a final meal you can't stomach, trying to breathe while dread crushes your chest. This is the story of Michael Perry's final day. And by the end, you'll understand why death was the easiest part. At just 29 years old, Daniel Mercer became one of the most unsettling cases in the modern history of capital punishment in the United States. His crime was not just brutal, it was senseless in a way that even hardened detectives struggled to understand. A botched carjacking that escalated into the murder of a young nurse named Emily Hart, her fiancé David Rudd, and their 12-year-old neighbor, Mason. 3 lives taken in minutes. 3 families shattered forever. And for what a silver truck Daniel never even managed to keep for more than 36 hours. He was 20 years old when he pulled the trigger, barely old enough to drink, old enough to know better, young enough to still believe he could outrun the consequences. His trial was quick. His appeals stretched for years. And eventually, the state scheduled his execution with the same procedural coldness reserved for filing paperwork or maintaining inventory. But the truth is this: death row does not punish the body first, punishes the mind. And the final 24 hours are engineered to strip the condemned of every layer of humanity they have left. These hours are not an ending. They are a psychological crucible. At 4:55 a.m., Daniel opened his eyes inside what inmates call the last room. A concrete cage the size of a walk-in closet. Bleak gray walls, no windows, a small steel toilet in the corner, and a bed bolted to the ground. This room sits only 1 corridor away from the execution chamber. That proximity is intentional. He could feel it. He could sense it. The air itself felt heavier, more artificial, more controlled. This wasn't just a cell. It was a funnel guiding him toward an unavoidable destination. The lights never fully go dark in the last room. They dim slightly, but they never turn off. Sleep comes in fragments, minutes at a time, never enough to feel real. And when he woke, he didn't wake like someone starting a day. He woke like someone emerging from the shallowest depths of a nightmare, only to realize the nightmare was waiting for him. The moment his eyes opened, he sat up slowly. His body felt stiff, but it wasn't the stiffness of age or illness. It was the stiffness of dread, pure biological dread. His execution was scheduled for 6 p.m. He knew the exact time of his death down to the minute. That knowledge gnawed at him relentlessly. Every second from sunrise to sunset would be spent marching toward that fixed point in time. Most people die without warning. He wasn't one of them. He had been handed the clock. 5:10 a.m. The first guard walked by. Execution day shifts are slower, quieter. The guards move with a peculiar kind of caution, like they're trying not to disturb the fragile emotional balance inside the cell. They don't look the inmate in the eye for too long. They don't speak unless necessary. The silence becomes a second warden. Minutes later, breakfast arrived. A tray sliding through a metal hatch. Dry cereal, 2 small pancakes, powdered eggs, and a carton of milk. Daniel didn't touch any of it at first. Hunger feels irrelevant in the face of extinction. But routine becomes a strange kind of comfort. So eventually he forced himself to take a few mechanical bites. Not because of hunger, because it was something to do. The act of eating became a tether to existence. 8 a.m. He was allowed to shower. The guards escorted him to a small stall with a metal grate for a floor. The water was warm. Too warm, he thought. Almost gentle. He stood there longer than he needed to, letting the water hit his back as if it could wash away the inevitability of the day. The shower on execution day is always the same. Slow, quiet, heavy. It isn't cleansing. It's ceremonial. You aren't washing for comfort. You're washing because society insists you be clean before it kills you. Then came the clothing. Fresh, pressed white uniform. Crisp, almost unnaturally clean. Death row whites. A uniform designed to dehumanize and purify at the same time. Once he put it on, he stopped being Daniel Mercer. He became Command Number 417A. A body prepared for processing. At 11:15 a.m., the chaplain visited him. A soft-spoken man with calm eyes and hands that never stopped trembling, no matter how still he tried to hold them. He asked Daniel if he wanted to pray. Daniel didn't answer at first. He stared at the wall, trying to understand what prayer meant when you had less than 8 hours left to live. Eventually he nodded. The chaplain whispered words meant to comfort the dying. Daniel didn't feel comfort, but he did feel something. Maybe regret, maybe fear, maybe both intertwined so tightly he couldn't tell them apart. At 12:45 p.m., the cruelty sharpened. His mother arrived. They sat separated by 2 inches of bulletproof glass. Phone to ear, eyes locked, hearts unraveling. She tried to smile, but her mouth trembled. Daniel apologized a dozen times. She told him she loved him more than she had words for. They talked for 54 minutes. Those minutes passed like water through a closed fist. When the guard stepped forward to end the visit, her eyes filled with panic. She pressed her hand flat against the glass. Daniel pressed his hand against the same spot. A touch that never touched. A final connection denied by protocol. When she was escorted out, Daniel didn't look up again for a long time. At 3 p.m., Daniel returned to his cell, and the next ritual began. The last meal. It appeared in the hatch like a strange paradox. A fully loaded cheeseburger, onion rings, a slice of strawberry cheesecake, and an orange soda. The state would take his life, but first it would feed him whatever he asked for. A tradition soaked in contradiction. Some say it's to show humanity. Others believe it exists to ease the conscience of those who carry out the execution. But Daniel understood the truth the moment he saw the tray. The last meal is not kindness. It is finality disguised as choice. He took small bites, but nothing tasted like anything. The flavors felt muted, distant, swallowed by anxiety. Every chew became a countdown. Every swallow another step toward the chamber. Eventually he pushed the tray away. His appetite was gone. All that remained was the weight in his chest. At 4:20 p.m., his attorney visited for the final time. She told him the governor had not issued a stay. The Supreme Court had declined emergency review. There would be no last-minute phone call. No miracle. No delay. Hope, the one thing he clung to for years, evaporated in seconds. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just nodded slowly, his face slack, his breath shallow. Like someone absorbing a blow he knew was coming but feared all the same. 5:40 p.m. The door opened. 4 officers entered. Calm, rehearsed, emotionally sterile. Daniel stood, hands behind his back. They escorted him down the corridor known among inmates as the death walk. 25 steps. 25 steps that stretched into an eternity. The fluorescent lights hummed above him. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant. Each footstep echoed like a ticking clock. They entered the chamber. A pale, sterile room painted mint green, meant to mimic a medical environment instead of what it truly was. A killing room. The gurney sat in the center, angled slightly so witnesses could see his face. Daniel stared at it for a long moment. Then, without being told, he climbed onto it. He lay flat, arms extended, palms facing upward. His chest rose and fell rapidly. The officers strapped him down. Leather across the ankles. Leather across the wrists. Leather across the chest. A nurse approached, expressionless, and inserted 4 lines into his arms. The tubes snaked to the wall where 3 syringes waited behind a curtain. 1 to sedate, 1 to paralyze, 1 to stop the heart. A clean process designed to look gentle. It wasn't. Across the glass, 2 groups sat. On one side, Emily Hart's parents, David's sister, Mason's grandmother. Their expressions were carved from years of grief. On the other side sat Daniel's mother and younger brother. Eyes swollen, bodies shaking. They all watched the same man for entirely different reasons. At 5:59 p.m., the warden stepped closer. He asked the question no one ever truly prepares for. Do you have any final words? Daniel exhaled slowly. His voice cracked. He apologized to the families he had harmed. He said he didn't expect forgiveness. He only hoped they might someday breathe without pain. Then he turned toward his mother. "I love you, Mom. Thank you for never leaving me." His last sentence was barely a whisper. At 6 p.m., the executioner pressed the button. Behind the curtain, the first chemical entered his bloodstream. Daniel's eyes fluttered. His breathing slowed. The second drug froze every muscle in his body. His chest stopped moving. He could no longer draw breath. His skin turned pale. The third chemical reached his heart. His fingers twitched once. Then everything stilled. The room fell silent. The kind of silence that feels unnatural, heavy, suffocating. At 6:14 p.m., the physician checked for a pulse, listened for a heartbeat that had already surrendered. Time of death, 6:14 p.m. Daniel Mercer was gone. But here's the truth no one talks about. The execution lasts minutes. The real punishment lasts 24 hours. The psychological distortion, the forced rituals, the mechanical countdown to death, that is the true cruelty. Daniel didn't spend those hours dying. He spent them knowing exactly when and how he would die. That is a punishment far more devastating than the injection itself. This is the part of death row people rarely talk about. We argue whether execution is justice, whether it protects anyone, whether it truly brings closure. But almost no one speaks about the quiet suffering inside those final hours. The waiting, the routine, the final moments that don't feel final until they suddenly are. Michael Perry is gone. His victims are gone. And the families trapped between grief and anger are left carrying wounds that time can dull but never erase. These stories remind us that behind every headline is a circle of lives permanently altered by violence and the system meant to respond to it. Thanks for watching. This is Court of Secrets, where we uncover the darkest realities of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below.